Minutes late, I'd like to call to order the planning board meeting for Monday, September 20th, 2021. Everybody is here this evening, so that's great, as well as town staff. So we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which as always will be open forum. Jeff, any items for open forum?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I'm very happy to introduce our new town planner, Joe Jenowitz, and I'm hoping Joe will just say a few words to briefly introduce himself.
Great. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. So again, Joe Jenowitz, I'm the new town planner here. I come from the city of Lowell previously, where I have about 11 and a half years of experience there. Almost like two careers in a way. The first half was with the different land use boards, planning board, zoning board, conservation commission within the development services division of planning and development there. In the second half, I was the urban renewal project manager within the community development division, trying to put forth city projects in some of the city's most blighted areas. So that's where I come from, and I'm really excited to be here.
Great. Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, welcome.
And you survived the rain.
Yeah, some of us met him on a site walk a couple weeks ago.
So Jeff, obviously you're happy. You have an
Static.
an abundance of staff now. That's fantastic.
Not an abundance.
Well,
Sufficient.
relative, yes. Yes,
Sufficient.
we're sufficiently staffed again. It's great. Excellent. Well, welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
Anybody on the board have any items for open forum?
Nope.
No? Great. Well, then we'll dive in with our public hearing items. The first one is PB 21... Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
To the open forum.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Please just state your name.
My name is Bill Harmon. I live on Old Colony Drive, and I spoke here in open forum to tell you about something I learned at a workshop. You may know this name, Randall Arendt. This workshop was in Harvard, and they invited Randall Arendt to come and be the subject of the workshop. And what I learned is that this was new, that the open space residential subdivisions can be made by right without a special permit, and the non-open space subdivisions that, as you know, don't have any open space, those can be made a special permit. And I think this would fit here in Westford really well. Now, that's my quick announcement, but you know, that's a pretty rich subject, and I'm just squeezing it in a little quick announcement, but maybe you might put it on the agenda sometime. There's a lot of things that I could explain about that if you'd be interested in that subject.
Oh, great. Jeff, I guess we can take that as an item. Maybe we can put that into a future meeting when we have a
Sure.
little bit of space on the agenda.
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Harmon.
Cool, thank you.
Anybody else, I'm sorry, in the audience have anything else for open forum?
I would just like to add to that last year Bill did send us an email that had, I believe the Mass Audubon Society has a template for open space plans that he had shared with us, so that would tie in with that.
Thanks.
Great. All right. Okay. Seeing nothing else for open forum, we'll move on to the public hearing items. So the first one is PB 2130, site plan review and a stormwater management permit for 33 Robinson Road. The applicant has requested postponement to the October 4th meeting. Is there a motion to continue PB 2130 to October 4th?
So moved.
Second.
Great. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
7:30 p.m. here in Town Hall Meeting Room 201, and just pay attention in case we end up going.
In case something happens. Yep. Great. Motion and a friendly amendment to this to the motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Great. The next public hearing item is PB 2133. Subdivision plan stormwater management permit for 22 Griffin Road, Cloverleaf Fields. Once again, the applicant has requested postponement without discussion to October 4th.
7:30 p.m. Mondays.
Yes.
Here
at
in Town Hall Meeting Room 201.
Yes. Is there a motion to continue it to that time
So
certain?
moved.
Second?
Second.
Great. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Okay, one abstain. Great. Okay, that brings us to our third public hearing item, which is PB 2134. Let's see. A special permit for a new subdivision for Providence Road lots 2 and 3 for the construction of a common driveway to serve 2 lots.
Mr. Chair, I move that we waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
It's already been open.
It's already open.
It's already been read.
Oh, yeah.
That's the next one.
Oh, sorry. I'm so conditioned.
It's okay. All right. So, yeah, so we've heard this in the last meeting, August 16th, so we'll turn it over to the applicant.
Very good. My name is Mark Slager. I'm here on behalf of Ray Adams, who is the applicant for the special permit for a common driveway serving lots 2 and 3. At the last meeting, we basically went through the fact that we're doing a special permit for the common driveway to avoid building 2 individual driveways. We had requested some additional feedback from the fire department relative to their initial comments. And there was also some questions from the engineering department. I've reviewed some of the engineering department's comments, and I don't have any issues with any of them. Specifically, they wanted the limit of work stake to make sure that we don't exceed 1 acre of disturbance. And they wanted some infiltration, additional infiltration above what we originally proposed. And my first thought is we'll just add some roof drains. We do have a meeting with the Conservation Commission this Wednesday, and I'm sure that's one of the comments that they will have as well, so we might as well just add that into the condition for the special permit as well. The comments from the fire chief, or the, I don't know if it's the
Deputy Fire Chief.
Deputy Fire Chief.
Deputy Fire Chief, Dan Ripko. He recommended that we increase the pavement width to 18 feet from 16 feet, which I've done and incorporated that in the plan. And also we extended the turnout area beyond the driveways a little bit further to provide a little bit more turning maneuverability. As I mentioned before, the driveways for each house are aligned opposite each other, so we've got a nice little T turnaround there for all the delivery trucks and whatnot. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the board.
Great. Okay. Anything from town staff before we go to the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I did reach out to the engineering department just to see if the small additional width to the driveway would change their review at all. The engineering department confirmed that they really have no issues with this proposal, even given that minor change, and they would not object if the board decided to close and approve. They only respectfully request that if you do so, could you please make reference to their technical review memorandum dated July 30th and incorporate their suggestions and suggested conditions as conditions of approval if you choose to do so.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, let's go to the board for their comments. We'll start at this end first. Bob?
Just to be clear, Mark, I think it's increased the width and added the stabilized shoulder on that driveway, correct?
Yeah, we had originally 3-foot shoulders on each side with 16 feet of pavement. Now we're going with 18 feet of pavement and 2 feet of shoulders.
Yeah.
So we're still at 22 foot of width.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear, because it shows on the print. So, no, that's really all it was. I spoke with Jeff earlier today and got clarification on the different opinions I was trying to read through between the different fire officials and Mark, and I think now we have agreement, so I'm good on this.
Great. All right, thank you. Kate?
I just have a comment that the fire department requested that the first 25 feet of the driveways be 12 feet. And I think they don't realize that our standard in our subdivision rules and regulations is that a private driveway has to be 12 feet.
So if I may be so bold, the subdivision regulations generally apply to subdivisions, and these are already A&R lots, so
Yeah,
I'm
but,
not sure.
yeah, but, okay, so, alrighty. Anyway, just a question, thinking of that, looking at your plan, it looks as though the driveways are wider than the common driveway part, just a,
Well, they're servicing 2-car garages, so
Oh.
typically they're 20 to 24 feet.
okay.
And they don't have the stabilized shoulder.
Correct.
Okay. And on your plans, the first page, it shows now the easement for the well.
Yes.
Is that an existing easement?
No, it's not an existing easement, but it's an existing well that services house number 38.
So is the owner going to generate?
He's going to, yeah, via this plan, he's going to draft the appropriate deed for the easement and grant that to the owner of lot 38.
So then on the final plans that we endorse, you will have in that front page, like where it's recorded, along with the driveway easement that you're going to generate, that they both are on the
Yeah.
plan?
This is actually the easement plan that will go on record. It has the layout of the easement itself, and it also has the added easement for the well on lot 38. I don't know if there's anything required for endorsement by the board.
Right, so typically, the
Because
board
it's
would
not
not
a
be endorsing this.
subdivision.
But we would be attaching it with the decision that would get recorded.
Okay, all righty. I mean, just somewhere so somebody can find the easement, which would be nice. And then I had a comment on the engineering suggested conditions. Would this kind of a project require a pre-construction meeting?
It's typical that we would add that as a standard condition of approval. It's always good practice to make sure that there's a pre-construction meeting. The other point is if you take on engineering's recommendations, it would be helpful to have the erosion controls and limit of work staked out in advance of the pre-con, so that can be inspected prior to start a project.
So we would, if we decide to approve it tonight, we would add those two to the list. Okay.
Yep.
So that's all I had.
Great. Mike?
Yeah, I'm fine with all of this, including engineering's comments in our decision. I'm good.
Okay, great. Darren?
Nope, I think I'm all good. And Mark, thanks for specifying the square footage of disturbance as well.
I am also good, as long as you've made the fire department happy. That was my only question and concern with the plan, so I think I'm good as well.
Okay.
So with that, we'll open it up to the audience. If anybody would like to comment on PB 2134, lots 2 and 4 for Providence Road. Okay, so seeing none, what's the pleasure of the board? Are we set to close and vote? Great. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, so we're closed. And then, is there a motion to approve PB 2134 Providence Road lots 2 and 3 for a special permit for the construction of a common driveway to serve 2 lots with, I'm sorry, Jeff?
Nope, just if there's going to be a motion, could you make reference to the requested waiver from the sidewalk as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, it's okay. Do you want to make a motion?
You were doing so well.
Okay, great. So, let's see. Now I gotta pick up where I was. So, okay, the construction of a common driveway with comments from engineering in their memo that's included in the packet. What was the date of that again, Jeff?
July 30th, 2021. So.
Thank you. As well as,
2 additions mentioned here tonight.
yep,
And also with the addition of a waiver request for no sidewalks along the common driveway.
right. Is that sufficient, Jeff?
Absolutely.
Second.
Thank you. Wait, no, you gotta move it.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Mark. Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
You too. Okay, the next public hearing item before us is PB 2136, which is for 22 Town Farm Road, Buildings 13 and 16, a modification for a site plan review to allow for an expansion of use of the Millworks facility, an indoor and outdoor commercial recreation and restaurant use into Buildings 13 and 16. We have the applicant with us? Yep, here we are.
We need to do the,
Yep. Is there a motion to waive the meeting, the
no,
reading?
first, before we open it, we need to do the fee.
Oh, right, there is a discussion of fees. I did see that in the packet. So, do you want us to handle fees before we open?
So we typically advise the board before opening the public hearing, you can certainly act on waiving the notice, but you should at least decide whether or not you can act on that fee request, that waiver, before you open the hearing, or just make sure that if you find that you need more details and information as a result of the overall project, sometimes you'll actually open the hearing,
Right.
get that information, and then decide on the
Yeah.
waiver. And
Well-
sometimes you might wait even later, but we
Yeah.
just want to make sure it's not forgotten.
Well, let's check the first box. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great. Okay, we've gotten that far. Would we like to discuss the fees then?
Yeah.
Great. Darren, what are your thoughts?
Well, I saw there was a proposed fee of $300 or not to exceed 300. I know we had a fee discussion last time about this project. I'm just trying to refresh my memory about, how we ended up on the fee, for that. Jeff, do you recall what the fee was for the last time we did this?
I think, and that there were a couple of times, but I believe the last time, or one of the last times, there was a $3,000, no, to be fair to the applicant, our fee schedule does not distinguish between changes of use versus brand-new construction.
Right.
So that is something that we mentioned that we feel as though going forward we should take a look at. But they are looking to simply change of use from the industrial and/or, warehouse to the commercial recreation. And so, under strict reading of our fee schedule, it's $3,000 minimum no matter what. And it doesn't matter if it's only a change of use. So that being said, I think previously the board considered a $3,000 fee, and there might have been even more because there were, at that time, special permits, I think, thrown into that mix that totaled quite a bit of money. And I think the board waived prior 2/3 of the amount, maintained 1/3 in consideration for some things that the applicant put on the table that couldn't quite necessarily be required under one or more of the permits. They volunteered some things and the board decided to waive that amount. So, which is, I don't know if that's consistent with your,
It's pretty good
for
3 years.
so it isn't a hard and fast thing. The base assumption is $3,000 unless the board, you do have the discretion to waive for good or any cause, so.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, so I think last time too, there was it was much more comprehensive than what we're proposing today, so 300 seems fine with me.
Okay, Mike?
I agree.
Yep. I'll go next. I agree. I'm okay with 300. Okay.
I was thinking it was going to be a little bit low because I know parking was a very big issue the last time. And with the addition of more sports going on there, parking will be another thing that we're going to have to really look hard at, as well as pedestrian safety and markings and such. So I think that there is going to be some requirement of staff time, possibly engineering, I don't know, definitely planning department, definitely fire and police. So I think 300 is a little bit low. I was going to suggest 1,000.
Okay. Okay. Bob?
I guess along the line of Kate's question, the only question I'd have to Jeff or Sierra, or Jeff now,
Joe.
Joe, I'm sorry, all these, is what we might ask, do you expect for out needs? That's the cost I'm more concerned with, because I think we kind of have a fixed budget for the town staff, but if we have to pay for consultants.
So for a project of this type, given that the majority of the facility was already reviewed, I would not anticipate third-party review unless I receive such from the board. If there's lack of certainty about how much staff time may be involved of the various departments, you could always table discussion on the waiver request until you know how much is involved further along in the process.
Bob, did you have a?
Nope, that was the one, otherwise I'm fine with lowering the fee,
Yeah.
so I think that's fine.
Okay. Do you want us to take a vote on a fee then?
It's not what I want, it's what the board wants.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is we postpone it, and if we are 6 months down the road and we still haven't
Done anything?
closed this thing, and then, okay,
Yep.
maybe it goes up from there.
I kind of like that. Why don't we get into it and see how much it's going to be? I mean, my question is always how much engineering is going to be involved, and it doesn't sound like there's going to be a lot of engineering department involvement, but
So if it's I think we proceed thinking maybe 300, and if it goes to be an extended review, then maybe we can go up from there down the road.
yeah.
If that makes
Is
sense.
everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Starting here? Great. Okay. Then is there a motion to open PB 2136 for 22 Town Farm Road?
Just before we do that, do we need to make any kind of motion on the fee, just to say that we are taking no action? Or do we
No.
just leave it alone?
I think you can leave it alone. I think there'll be public record here, and at the end of the day, you're not going to issue a decision until you have what is required by the board.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
great. So, motion to open PB 2136 for 22 Town Farm Road?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And we're open. Let's go to the applicant.
Good evening, Chris Ewell, 22 Town Farm Road. Welcome to the process. I haven't met you guys personally before. Nice to see you. I think, given all the time spent on the previous submissions, I'll be very, very brief. I think you folks probably remember more about this than I care to admit. The sum and substance of it is, when we were discussing this project before, most of the discussion was generic about the kind of use that was going on, and is this what the town wanted, and what were we providing? And there was little discussion about a particular section of the building versus another section of the building. And in the back of my mind, we always assumed that we'd be back about those two buildings, which is why it took us a while to file. We completely forgot that it was even necessary. My apologies for that. That's my mistake. So those two buildings are serving as overflow space for the original two buildings. There's nothing new in there. One is turf and one is basketball, volleyball, and badminton, which of course we already have. So none of it is new. It's just a matter of accommodating the change in use for that specific space. There's virtually no change to the exterior or interior of the building. All we had to do is clean the floors and put down the material and bring in some portable baskets because they roll around, and paint everything up. And the lights got changed by National Grid as part of their energy program, so that was a free ride. And the front entrance will continue to be the primary entrance for the whole facility. There are no separate entrances, so there are no access issues. Everybody still comes in the same way. The timing will be handled by management as to how the traffic flows, and so I think it's really something that nobody will even notice, to be perfectly honest, and it does give us more flexibility in scheduling. It allows, and I'm sorry, I meant to introduce, this is Ilya Nicholas. I don't think you guys have met Ilya. I got kind of caught up in this. Ilya is the new general manager. I'm assuming you all know, he took Sandra's place. And it's quite a new operation, and if you haven't seen the results of his incredible work, I think you should come by. I can't keep a straight face when we talk about this because the changes are really exciting. And Ilya is responsible for all of that. I'm just a thorn in the side worrying about housekeeping issues. So my hat is off to him and his team. All of them have experience in professional sports. They're all professional athletes and want to do this as a service to children all in the region. And the whole point is to have it be a very high-quality facility, attracting national talent so that we have access to terrific resources here. And we're starting to get that. And you may have heard that Marcus Smart did his youth camp here for 2 days this summer. And that's a wonderful thing for the kids to have access to somebody like him for training, and there are other professional athletes who are interested in coming because they've heard it's a great place. And they like the management that Ilya brings to it, and his understanding of how to coordinate youth and professional sports. It's really been a great change. So this is really just a logical extension, and it makes it possible for us to do what we originally intended to do. which is a wide variety of sports and recreation, but do it really well. And these facilities are all at top quality. I think it's safe to say we've gone through the past several years really without incident once we got through the growing pains time and getting everybody used to what the operation was. There hasn't been a single incident for quite a long time. We also manage the events a little bit better and make sure everything gets coordinated. The striping is done, and that has all worked out well. We've not run out of parking, so I don't think parking is even an issue. And it won't be an issue because there's essentially new parking available now that Phase 2 of Abbott Mill next door is built, because Phase 2 was using some of the parking adjacent to Building 14 and really hasn't been available this whole time. Well, now that's all done and the paving is fixed. So that provides some additional buffering if it ever becomes necessary, but we don't think it's going to be an issue at all. So we just are not worried about parking at all. And the other issues that were raised, Title V report is coming in. The septic system appears to be fine. And it's much, much lower use than before, even with this additional use. It's vastly lower than when Courier was here. So I think I'll let Ilya add in anything he wants to add, and then whatever questions you have, we'll be glad to answer them or try anyway.
Just to piggyback on Chris, appreciate you taking the time to hear us. Outside of what he said, bringing out a lot of different professional venues to Westford and adding, to the community. My main focus outside of that, which is an added attraction, is to give back to the community. We have a lot of great relationships with Westford Academy that we donate space to, as well as we're in the process of working on a program with Westford Recreation to host a lot of the recreational programs at our facility that wasn't in place before I got there. So there's a lot of excitement in that way, because I'm all about giving back to the community, because I think that comes back to us, tenfold. So outside of putting us on the map of being one of the top sports facilities and largest actually in New England, and drawing from outside, my main concern is the town and the community and giving back to the community. And we have a great percentage in the fitness areas of local, not only students, but parents that attend our classes and that fitness part and badminton and all that type of thing. So our core actually is the residents of Westford. Our weekend activities, yes, we do host events. That's how we financially stay stable as well. But we've been able to, through management, through overstaffing, is control the parking. We haven't had any issues. We've dealt with closely, talked with the fire department, police department. Any issues arise, we take care of immediately. And so we've had a great relationship with the town that way. And I look forward to continuing down that path and helping out any way I can from my end. I also have letters of recommendation I sent by email to the board, but if I have physical copies, if you'd like to see those off the board.
And I think I should just point out that building department and fire department and conservation were all there several months ago to take a walk through, and they didn't have any comments. There was one thing that they mentioned later on, which was a piece of concrete on the floor that they asked to be removed that was close to a fire exit. So we took that up, and that was it. Everything else is fine. All the horns and strobes are there. We even put in our night lights. We use a night light system for the fire department, because anyone who's working in those buildings, when the lights are off, they're very big, and you can't see your way around inside at night. So whenever we turn off the overhead lights, they're little small, kind of oversized night lights for them in each building. So when the lights go off, those come on, so any emergency staff can always find their way around the building, and that's for the fire department guys and for us at night. So those are little practical things that we try to do to make it appropriate and safe, as obviously safety is #1 priority.
Can you talk about the changes that you proposed to the pedestrian striping and stuff? You mentioned that in the packet.
Yes.
Or in your document.
The crosswalks that were requested in the original hearings are done. The drop-off and fire lane, no parking zone striping is done, and you have photographs of that we sent over. Those are all done. Handicap spaces are striped. We put in 4 of those, and the striping over to the west of Building 14 is all new, and we will continue as the striping wears out. We have the ability to do some of this now on our own, so we will be renewing the striping on an ongoing, permanent basis. If you do 50 or 100 spaces at a time, it keeps everything fresh, and it makes it easier than trying to do the whole thing all at once with all the cars in the way. It's a huge job, so that will help some as well. But it's really worked out quite well, and as long as we do the regular maintenance, which of course we do, the parking lot works fine, and the sheet runoff system's been working great. And we cleaned up the area to the right of Building 18. That's now a nice flat area. That came out really well once all the trash and debris was cleaned out from Courier's days.
Do you have a slide that represents, I mean, buildings 13 and 16 are within, I seem to recall when you were before us last that those buildings aren't actually separate structures, right? They're regions within the same sort of large structure, right?
I think so. It's the buildings were built in sequence, so they're physically built next to each other, but then it becomes a legal definition of what's one building when they start measuring square footages. But structurally, it's all independent structure for each section of the buildings. 13 and 16 obviously are the 2 on the left in this slide, but they're all of the same basic structural type. 13 is kind of special, and if you ever come by, I think you'll be quite impressed with it, because it's a 144-foot building, of which 120 feet is clear span. So you have a 330-foot long building, wide open, no columns, all the way to the end, which is why that's all done as turf. You can kick a soccer ball from one end to the other and with no obstacles. That's really rare for indoor facilities. And the 40 feet or the 24 feet outside of that is for ancillary uses, much smaller scale things. And Building 16 lays out beautifully for 4 of the exact same basketball courts that are in Building 17, plus 4 multi-purpose courts which can be used for virtually anything. I mean, Billy will tell you that everybody and their brother goes in there depending on what day it is.
So we try to, everything we've done and added in my time there, we try to multi-purpose to use for the benefit of the community and for all our members. So we multi-purpose those courts that he was talking into, not only basketball, but basketball, volleyball, futsal, which is another version of soccer. We have pickleball, which is a huge part of the community that I'm learning to get along with. It can be a difficult crowd sometimes, but overall, like I said, the soccer, the clear span is tremendous in terms of the soccer field. A 100-yard span is pretty impressive, which we can also multi-purpose into lacrosse and field hockey. We can put courts on top of it. So it's really giving us the opportunity to give back to the community and give back to around the region of New England and put Westford on the map of being a destination spot, which will also add to the tourism, to the hotels in the area, to add to the local businesses. Businesses have really come up to me and thanked me, which I get surprised at, like Muffins on Main or different communities, because their businesses are going through the roof because of all the the flow we have throughout the weekends and throughout the week. So I think it's been a great add and great benefit for the community.
Great.
I'm ready.
So, if I may, I think I recall,
I know, no, we're coming around for official. Go ahead.
so I think, Mr. Yu, you were here maybe about a year ago, and there were some questions about some of the parking lot issues. Was it maybe a year ago? I can't remember exactly. And I'm looking at, the reports that we have, and there still seems to be stuff outstanding from the previous decisions. Now, I see a package that we came in on Saturday, with the pictures of the painting and the stripings, but you say the handicap parking signs are still in back order. I think that decision was from 2017, and I'll be frank that I don't know that I could vote to approve anything until we know that the previous requirements have been fulfilled from the past application. I mean, I've got good things to say about Millworks, my kids enjoy Millworks, but I don't know that I'm comfortable going forward on anything until we've heard from the building inspector that the previous issues have been resolved in requirements of the previous application.
Yes, that's fine. We don't have any problem with doing it. That is our intention all along. We did get behind on some of it. COVID just knocked us for a loop. So we're a little bit disorganized on that, and we still have more work to do. The signage was the biggest issue that the building department had a problem with, and we had to hold that up because, number one, 13 and 16 were coming up, and half the signage was designed to accommodate that as a multi-tenant building, and there were signs all over the place. It was really kind of confusing. I was never happy with it. So at that point, we suspended it, plus it was a lot of money, and we couldn't afford to do it twice. So at that point, I spoke to Henry, and we just said, come back before the board, resolve everything at once, and get it all done at once. The handicap signs, we will get those right away. I'll have to deal with that myself personally, I think. Get that done. It's not a difficult thing. I think it just got lost in the sauce, to be honest. And we'll get that finished. And to my understanding, that should wrap it up. And if there's anything else, I'll go see Henry and make sure that, that he's okay. But I've talked to him from time to time, and he's been comfortable, and he was out here for his inspection, and he didn't have anything to say other than that.
Yeah. So just before I go officially around, just to make sure that we're really clear on everything that's being proposed here, can you speak a little bit to the restaurant intended use? Is that active now? Is that in 13? Is that in 16? Is this like a snack bar? Is this, I remember when you were before us, I mean, you painted sort of pictures of like an outdoor seating area and potentially a, opportunity to sit outside with food. So can you talk to us about what's the scope of what's going on from a restaurant perspective now, and what is the intention?
It's a very simple situation. I don't know how things morphed into other things. The proposal that you have on record is still the proposal. There's been no change to any of it.
Okay.
There's a restaurant right next to the main entry where it belongs, and then there's a snack bar and the food preparation area next to that, unchanged. Those are being pursued. We are starting to file the license. We had to get a whole bunch of things out of the way first and get clear about 13 and 16 before expensive. The restaurant's going to be expensive. We have to be really careful about that.
Yep.
And there is outdoor seating, but that's on the plan you already have.
Yep.
And there was a question about the total capacity of the restaurant, did it not exceed a certain number?
Yep.
And it does not.
Okay.
We completely agree with all of that. It's intended to be an accessory to the facility, not drive the whole facility.
Right.
So we don't want it just, what do they say, cart before the horse here or something.
Yep.
So we understand, I think, that concern, and we completely agree. It just, there's been a lot of energy around where's the restaurant, where's the restaurant? And we're trying to get that done, and the original brew pub that was suggested still is a viable possibility. It could be, if we can work something like that, it'd be a really interesting feature. I mean, above it all, it has to be interesting to the town. People need to say, wow, that's great, and we want to eat there. Otherwise, what's the point? So that's what we're going to do as that goes forward. But
Okay.
there's very strict legal requirements, and Paul Alphen is handling that.
Yep.
And he's handling the application, but we could not do that tonight. As part of this, I would have liked to, but there's too much that has to be done, and we can't wait on this because
Yep.
we need to be doing activities in 13 and 16, and it's really holding us up.
Yep.
And now is coming up the season where we need to be able to use those spaces.
Okay, so no change in scope to what we heard previously?
None.
Great, okay. All right, I think with that, shall we go to individual board member questions?
Yeah.
Bob, would you like to start?
So being new to this, since I wasn't here several years ago, maybe we have it on file, Jeff, but I'd like to see something that is easier for me to understand the traffic flow. I'm not getting a warm fuzzy at this point about the amount of space for traffic with respect to through lanes and drop-off areas and parking. I see plenty of parking. I will mention also that I was focusing on this print here, which I don't know what the difference was, but this one compared to what's up on the screen doesn't have the first drop-off area that would be immediately adjacent to Building 18. So it looks like there's 3 drop-off areas on this print, and I see 2 here. So that's why I want to see some better information.
They're striped. If there's a difference on the plan, I'm not sure what that's about, but the striping that's in the photographs goes all the way both sides of the front entrance.
Yeah, I just need to see something, Chris, that I can see the traffic flow, because I'm having a hard time to make sure that I think there's enough room for everything to take place.
But I think just in general terms, what I can tell you is, if you follow the right-of-way coming in the driveway that goes along the edge of the grass, that's a 30-foot right-of-way. People don't realize how big that is. It's bigger than many
No,
secondary roads.
I understand. That's why I'm asking if I see the print, it'll indicate that width, and I'll get my comfort.
It's on the original print that we submitted way back in 2017 that was approved. So we have not made any changes to any of the parking. All of this is just to tighten up what was originally approved and that we've done it, so we're in compliance.
Okay. Now, I saw a note on this one that up at the at the entry point to access point to Phase 1 and Phase 2, adjacent to Building 13, I see a note on here that this is an access easement with no through traffic. And I'm fine with that, but I'm a little concerned when you made the comments that people from Phase 2 were parking over in this area, which means there's reverse flow coming through the site?
No, it's only because we don't have the final certificate of occupancy on the garage in Building 15, so some people are just parking over there for convenience, just because it's easier for them, and that will go away very
I
soon.
understand, but what I'm concerned about is what were the controls put in place to limit access, because how can they get that access if those controls were in place? I guess that's my question.
Well, there aren't controls proposed. All we're going to do is put up signs that says no through traffic. What we're concerned about is people coming from out of town driving through there, and we're going to put up 2 signs that say no through traffic, and our hope is that that will be sufficient.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get into electronic controls, and they're ugly, they don't belong in a residential setting, and they're a big maintenance headache. We're going to try to manage it internally, and if it's just an occasional car now and then, we're not going to get
Right.
excited. We don't want to be the police force, but if it gets out of hand, then we'll step in and we'll upgrade it as necessary, because people from Phase 1 and Phase 2 will be driving through there. They have a right to do that. The primary function of that access easement is for the fire department. So
Understood.
that's why it's protected, and that's why I hesitate to put up any structures.
No, I understand, but that's, because that also affects my concerns about making sure that the traffic is coming through at a casual pace adjacent to drop-off areas where we're probably going to have small children running about, and they can tend to kind of scatter out into the through lanes, and I just want to make sure we've got good control on that. You also mentioned, and this was new to me, and I saw this when I was reading the packet, and I wasn't sure what I read until you stated it. You already are in occupying buildings 13 and 16. And
Partially, yes.
partially. So can you help me understand when you fully occupy and what the difference between now and the future would be, so I could understand the current condition with the volume of patrons versus what the end state is? Because I suspect we have a lot of residents here. I'm looking around behind you, and I'm suspicious that we're going to have a discussion on some of the impacts on the neighborhood. We've been hearing about noise, and we've heard about, I think, the traffic. So I just want to understand, are we at an 85% level, or are we at a 95% of final? Do you have an estimate?
50, 20.
Well, I mean, I'm going to say we're more than 50, since 17 and 18 are substantially the majority, they're more than half of the property.
I mean, I can address it for you, and I can actually address it for you in twofold. I'm also fortunate enough to be a resident of Abbott Mill as well, so in terms of seeing the flow of overflow of parking and whatnot, if I've seen more than 2 or 3 cars at a time, even when I left tonight, it's minimal at best.
Okay.
So it's not like you're dealing with 40 or 50 overflow cars. It's just, incidental parking at the end of the day. In terms of usage of building, what we used it for was overflow of our games or events that flowed over. So it's not like they're fully occupied now. That hasn't been the case. It's just overflow. If we have games going on or events going on, or kids just want to shoot around, within the community. They want extra baskets because we are renting out 17 and 18 and extra space for them to play or participate or in a practice. The town wants to rent out. We do a lot of stuff this whole summer. We had Westford Academy, ran their high school basketball league there. So everything like we do is community driven, and it does push out a little bit, I'm going to be honest, just that overflow off of that. In terms of events, just because I've been through it for the past year plus since I've taken over, they've been very well managed in terms of any issues with parking. I have people out there outside as parking attendants that deal with, and the only times those are issues are during the weekends when we do host events.
Okay.
So I'm very cognizant of that and very cognizant of the community. As a neighbor, I'm very cognizant myself as well in terms of what's going on, and I'm very in tune with the neighborhood at Abbott Mill and the people around. And any issues that ever come up, I try to address them in an immediate fashion. So there were, and I'll even address this going forward, there were some issues with noise that people brought up after the fact. It wasn't brought directly to me, but I dealt with it. We had police come 2 different times and to listen. Had zero issue with it, but they had to investigate it. Both times I addressed with a neighbor had reached out to me and come to the mill. I addressed it right away, which I have records of via email. Right away, any incidents that ever come in the community, I always address in an immediate fashion because I'm very cognizant and aware. We live right behind it. If there are noise, we live right behind the train tracks as well. So when I was living there with my fiance, I hear the train going 2, 3 in the morning. That's a little bit of noise, but that's something as you live at the mill, there are some things to deal with.
Yeah, I guess along with Chris, I'm the only members here. I actually had a previous term, and I'm the only members who have done the original site tour before the mill was ever converted, so I'm pretty familiar with the property, what it was in its raw state. What I haven't seen is
the traffic is hugely less than it was. They were doing 2 shifts down there, 800 people. It just dwarfs anything that we do, but back then, it was just courier, and that's the way they were, and nobody thought a thing about it. And there were fires in there all the time, the police were there from time to time. But now that it's changed, all of a sudden it's in the focus of attention, so it's in the glare of the floodlights.
So, okay. I'm good for now.
Great, okay, thanks, Bob. Kate?
First, congratulations on, I know it's really successful, everybody talks about it, I even know people who come to use it for soccer from New Hampshire because of COVID. That's the only place they could go to play soccer. So it's great that it's doing well, and it's worth it for you to expand it. I think that's really great. So you only do it for overflow now. There's nothing official that you're doing in those 2 buildings right now. So you're going to be adding the soccer and the basketball courts, is my understanding. You're not doing anything official in those buildings right now.
Describe that.
Like we said, in terms of overflow right now, we are not doing anything official.
I don't know what overflow means.
Overflow, if we have X amount, we're renting out in 17 and 18.
Yeah.
We have our fitness members or our drop-in type students that want to play, or we have an in-town type activity that we want to create a space for, whether it might be in crew or in basketball or badminton, because we're renting out volleyball in one space. So we try to provide a service for them. So that's the overflow, what I'm talking, meaning I don't directly book things. It's more for overflow, so it's our fitness members, which we have over 450 members that want a playing surface to play on. So when surfaces are rented, we offered another surface for them to play on. So that's what it's dedicated to.
Okay.
At
So,
this point.
but these will now be dedicated areas where you're going to be booking them as often as you can. So it is an increase over your current traffic and parking now. It could potentially be 40, 50 plus cars. And you're saying you're fine now, but I don't know what that means because I don't use your facility, even though I rave about it. But I don't know, when you, at your peak times, is it 50, 70, 80% full now? And plus, you don't have the restaurants in use. And yeah, part of patrons for the restaurants will people who are already there, but as you just stated, you want it to be potentially a go-to place for people who are not necessarily members of the gym. And we wrestled with this a lot the last time as how do you define. So if we take what you have now, I would like to know, like in your busy times, how much of the parking lot is full. And then we take that as a basis, and then we have to go back and add on, we can discuss like 50, 75, 100% of the restaurant traffic, and add that to what you're now seeing for your busy times, and then add on the potential for another, I don't know how many cars, 40 maybe, we can think about that, just, and add that in, and are we at that point, plus you have buses, I believe, when you have sometimes outside events, so this was a big concern the last time, and that's why I'm saying I really want to review it again to make sure that we're not going to be at a tipping point.
I think some things are piling on that perhaps shouldn't. For instance, if there's a tournament, which is when the parking area is most utilized, you're not going to have people coming in just to use the restaurant because it'll be full of people from the tournament. So it'll be self-selecting. So I think you won't be adding cars. Part of what we hope about the restaurant is it will broaden the use base of the building, so people will be more inclined to come during the lunchtime or during the daytime, not just in the evening, which is when 90% of the use is right now. And that'll help broaden the base of the facility, make it more financially stable, and then you'll be adding traffic at a time when there's nobody there anyway, or at least the traffic is quite light during the day. So I think then what you'll see is it will level itself out, and it will all sort of, spread out, and Ely will be designing it so that the traffic is part of the management plan.
Unless your chef is really great. You know?
Right. So I don't think it's going to be an issue, and in the original review, the board reserved the right in the approval to say, if there's a problem 6 months down the road, we reserve the right to reopen the process, and we would be fine with that again, because we're confident that this is a manageable situation. It has to be, or the facility simply won't.
But I would appreciate getting an idea from you guys, more than just hand waving, like.
Well, just to add to that, in terms of a restaurant, any sports facility.
No, I mean like what current use and current parking.
Well, it varies all the way from 50 to 70, 75%. Because again, this parking there was always parking kept open for the uses in 13 and 16. Those parking spaces are no longer required for that use. They now go to the millworks. So even though we didn't add any parking, we gained about 10 spaces, plus we gained all the areas that the tractor trailers were using to drive around the site. So the site's become much more efficient. And plus we have the space to the west of Building 14 now that's 100% available, and that adds another 25% capacity, which is more than enough for those two buildings. And if you just think about it, Building 13 is a soccer field. How many people are on a soccer field? Not much. So we just don't think it's going to be.
If it's I don't know, if it's kids, don't they always have more players than you need, like you hear of?
Yes, but all I'm saying is it's not thousands of people. It's just a kid's game. And we're used to this now, and it's a little hard to explain exactly how you do it, but you just make it work. Otherwise, and we had this conversation in the beginning, we said, give us a chance to do it, and you'll see. And for the past year, it has worked. We've still done tournaments, we've still had big events, but they've been spread out, and they've been managed, and there's staff handling the parking. We've had virtually no incidents in that entire time, and I think that's evidence to Ilya's attention to detail and wanting to make this work. We don't want an unsafe facility. We don't want to bring kids in and then have there be trouble. There's no conflict of interest there at all. We had a great time at the last site walk.
I'm just wondering, because we do have 2 new board members, even though you know the area, if it's worth it to going back there now that it's in use, maybe at a time in the evening when it is their busy time, or on a weekend when it's a busy time, just to do a site walk again, and just refresh our memories on this. And the other thing is, I hate to say this, Sierra, but it would be nice if we could somehow dig through everything from the last time they were here for parking, what we had for parking estimates, just because this is an addition, and I'd like to know what we were thinking of the last time for parking estimates, and then going from there.
Okay.
And out of curiosity, the last time you didn't know where all your leach fields and stuff were, have you located them?
Well, no, nothing's changed there. It's the same plan, and that's what the Title V report is about. What we don't know is the very specific details. Like, I like to know where every single pipe is. We don't have that detail, but that's not typically part of the Title V plan anyway.
Okay,
It kind of gives you the location.
just remember that.
You can see the general idea from the vent pipes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we know where the important stuff is because we inspect it on a regular basis.
I'll let somebody ask about noise.
Okay. Mike, did you have additional comments?
No, I'm gonna wait till hear from the other department.
Yeah. Okay. Darren?
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate you guys working with WA. I know that you guys have helped them out, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd be curious, I wouldn't mind doing a site walk, but can you guys just tell us, you know, what is your busy time of night during the week, and then a weekend day, like right now? So if I was to just take a drive down there, like, is it Tuesday night, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock? What's a peak time for you guys?
So our flow in our facility are usually between, not after school hours, but from 6 to 9:30 is when you're gonna find that's our primary rental times, as well as our weekends for events. Events can go anywhere between 8 a.m. in the morning to start, all the way to about 9 o'clock at night. Sunday they cut a little bit shorter, usually about 8 a.m., probably till about 4 p.m., 4 or 5 p.m. You know, my main goal is, obviously, as a business owner running something, is to have it rented and have as much rented as financially keeps us stable, and also gives back to the community by all the people we have coming in and the flow. And like I said, for me being there the last year and a half, it's been a very manageable group, and nothing has gone by the wayside, and we want to do whatever is best for the town and for our facility and the community.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'd be curious to see some of the discussion from parking last time. I'll take a ride down there, even just casually, but certainly if we do a site walk, it would make sense. And, yeah, I'm fine with the expansion as long as the parking and safety in the area can handle it. I think, yeah, I'd be curious, yeah, like Mike, I'm looking forward to seeing the building commissioner's reports back saying everything's all done. And then, fire and safety, and then, I think it'll be good from there.
Yeah, just so you know, the Chapter 34 report was done and went to Henry, and it was fine, which was no surprise because it's the same
When did that get
report
to
as the
Henry?
first. I'm sorry?
When was that, Henry?
A week or 10 days ago.
What's chapter 34?
It's the report that was required by the building inspector on a change of use. The Chapter 34 report was done for the first 2 buildings. It just wasn't talked about much because it said, is it safe? And the answer was yes. So it was done again, and it said the same thing. Everything is the same as before. All the egresses are proper. All of the life safety systems are fine. So it was a little bit, no surprise. We kind of knew what it was going to say because that's why we wanted to do this in the place. I mean, I'm a builder. I knew going in, I wouldn't have done it. So we weren't really surprised.
I meant to ask one other question, just as a clarifying question for us. I understood 17 and 18 were the scope of the original discussions, 13 and 16 tonight. The areas that are marked future outdoor activity areas, Have those been discussed? Have they been approved or not approved?
They were approved,
They were
yes.
approved.
So they're under the original approval,
Yes.
okay. All of those areas, including the ones that are,
And they've been in use, just occasional use. We've done, well, Gary had his fundraiser there when he did the cornhole tournament, and we've had just occasional, they're nothing too intense, but we're
Okay.
considering possibilities, but yes, those were approved.
I just want to understand what we were.
I guess I'm up last, so I'll echo Darren's comments that I think the facility provides great value to the schools in town, WA, and I know that you do a lot to support the local community. I think that's all great. I'm actually in the winter times I'm a user of the space, so I'm part of a men's soccer group that plays in the facility Sunday mornings bright and early. We
Jenner.
open you guys up, Martin Jenner, yeah, good buddy of
I
mine.
remember.
So I get in there before the crush of traffic. I'll echo a little bit, Mike and Bob's comments, which is, I think I don't really worry about parking. I think you guys have plenty of parking for the space, but I do worry about that space in terms of circulation of traffic. And I just think, I think if we're all, being honest with each other, like if you were gonna build that facility, there's no way that you would put that kind of parking deck in place as an ideal traffic flow, for ideal traffic flow to the facility. It's just not. You're making the best use, I think, of what is there. But that is where I very much agree with Mike's comment where, the signage really has to be good to kind of highlight where the drop-off points are. I know at least last winter that was still very much temporary signage, and I think you'd envision some more permanent signage for the drop-off spots. I think that should be, looked at with
That's
some
waiting for
urgency.
this approval.
Great.
We'll start that immediately once approval.
You say that, but, I'm sorry, Dylan.
Yeah, it's
But
okay.
you said you didn't know you had to come before us for this approval.
Yes.
Right,
Until
so, but you
Henry
said you're
brought-
waiting for this approval.
until
I mean, it's 2017, and you're waiting on handicap signs that are back ordered.
So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I think point taken, right? So I think what has to happen is you guys really do have to think very seriously about making sure that the traffic flow is very clear, because what I see, and there's been a couple times when that has been wrapping up, and you guys are clearly having a tournament because a lot of people are showing up, and kids have their high tops on, and it's a basketball tournament that's happening. Buses are pulling in. My personal 2 cents is, I think it's very clear as people come down the drive and they get to the drop-off area, where I think people start to get confused is there's multiple ways that they can then make the turnaround if they want to exit the facility and not stay. So I think you have people cutting through in multiple places through where cars are parked. And it's not really clear if you want them to go all the way to the end to circulate, or if you want them to cut through at any of like 3 or 4 different spots between the banks of parking. I think that could be better articulated through either, painting, ground painting or signage or something. And I do think that, taking you on your word that the last thing you want is a problem in the space, you've got kids there, I just think you ought to address that just to make it very clear how you want the traffic to flow through the space. But from a pure parking perspective, I think you actually have a lot of it. It's just very spread out.
Yeah, but they kind of go together.
They do. I agree. I'm not disagreeing. So those are,
Great, if we were sitting in your chair, we'd say the same thing.
yeah, okay, great.
And part of that, to help with that, on those weekends that you're there, is
Yeah.
that we would have people staffed outside. And I agree with you, the signage needs to be there, and
Yep.
we've done some of that, and even signage inside.
Yeah.
Just to direct, where's the turf
Yeah,
field?
and to your credit, I've
So
seen the
I'll
folks
agree
out
with
there, waving and directing folks in, so I know that I know you guys at your word, you are putting people out there to try to keep traffic moving, and obviously that's in your own best interest too, because you got to get people into the facility and even use it, right? So, but definitely, I think, before we take action on this, we need to see a strong commitment, I think, on the signage and wrapping up the loose ends that were sort of left over from that original approval, right?
There was a time requirement on the first signage proposal, and we blew that because of COVID
Yep.
and a whole bunch of other problems and the changes in 13 and 16. That's not going to happen this time.
Yep.
You want a strong commitment. I'm not sure what else. I have a reputation in town. If I screw that up, I'm nothing. So I have to get that done, and I will.
Yeah, okay. And if the board doesn't have anything else, I'd like to go to the audience.
One other comment,
Sure.
because I didn't want to be, I don't want to just be negative. I think this is amazing, because looking back when I did this in 2000, 2001 with Chris and the rest of the planning board, we did mill reuse, and it's kind of nice to see that what we're focused on today is the traffic, and we're focused on concerns in the neighborhood. Because we focused on concerns in the neighborhood at that time, and the concerns in the neighborhood were these massively vacant buildings that were not only an eyesore, but a hazard for the children. So now we're dealing with a different hazard, and it's kind of nice to see that shift.
Yep.
Thank
So
you
I think we can
so
fix these
much.
problems, but clear that, this has been a positive shift over
Right.
20 years.
I agree.
Thank you for that, Bob. That sometimes gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
And it's been very hard.
All right. If nobody else has any other comments, I'd like to go to the audience so we can get some feedback. I think we have some folks who might want to speak. So would anybody from the audience care to come up and comment on, of course, I'm just trying to get the, on PB 2136 for 22 Town Farm Road.
So official.
Well, just want to make sure it's clear. Please state your name and address.
Kate Gerstenmauer. I'm at 12 Pershing Street.
Great.
I just want to say, first of all, I am very relieved to hear that you guys are so community focused, because I think that means we can work together to really come to an agreement about how to really improve our lives at home, which is right just there on the other side of the train tracks, and really make this a really great place for everybody in town. I think we sent a letter. I have it here, and I'm actually going to let you guys have this copy because I have one on my phone. But this was a letter that we sent, and it's dated May 6th, and we sent it to Jody Ross. We also sent a copy to Mark Chambers for the police department, as well as the Millworks and Yule Development Company Incorporated. So this was our noise complaint that we made just this past May. It wasn't the first incident with noise for us, but it was the breaking point for us, as many of us are now suffering from migraines and nausea playing in our backyards while there's bass and music playing, all random times of the day and weekends. So I am going to let you guys have this because it was certified mail. And I homeschool my 3 kids. They are 7, 5, and 3, so they are perfect age for the soccer program. They love little kickers. It's definitely the kind of thing that they could benefit from. Because I do homeschool them, I need them to be able to hear me when we're in the yard, teaching them about, most recently, Fibonacci sequence and Fibonacci spirals and sunflowers. And it's just too disruptive to use our yard right now. I know I'm not the only one. We have a very concerned neighborhood. I'm not the only one who gets sick, physically sick, from the volume of the music. And I know that there are other issues with lighting and people having lights that are pointing straight into their bedrooms at night. So there are a few things that we really are concerned about and really want to address and try to come to an agreement about how we can fix this and really make it a community shared space. And hopefully we can address that with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Need to review what we agreed on for outdoor uses.
Good evening. My name's Barbara Bogdan. I own 1416 Pershing, and it is on the other side of the tracks. And Mr. Yule, I'd like to tell you that we're happy you're concerned about our children and our community. We are too. Always have been. But before we can go forward with adding more noise, more light pollution, we need to take care of the problem that we already have. And when that's taken care of, I don't think any of us have a problem with you continuing with your improvements. But I know you've been called, we've talked to the police about it, and the problem hasn't been solved, hasn't been taken care of. It's like we talk to deaf ears, so to speak. And I think the fair thing to do here for all of us is before we start approving more construction, more use, let's get the use that's already going on under control. And that's with the noise, and that's with the lighting.
Can I ask a question about the lights? Is it the parking lot lights, or is our lights directly coming out of the facility?
There's a light that shines right into my daughter's bedroom. So where it's actually coming from, it's from Mr. Yule's property.
Right.
But where exactly it comes from, I'm not sure, where it's located on his buildings. The buildings in question are directly behind all of our houses with the improvement, the 13 and 16. And I know you live in the Mills, and that's great, but the man who signs your paycheck's sitting next to you. So, you know, I can understand why you might be tainted
Not at all.
on noise, but what we hear is then obviously different than what you hear.
No, I'm just gonna answer. When I first moved in there, I moved in with my fiance.
Yeah.
She went crazy, the noises in the building itself,
Yeah.
on top of the roof and all that type of stuff. There was some, and the train going off at 2, 3
Yeah.
in the morning, so it was something to get adjusted to. There's no doubt about
It
that.
is, but we have a lot of little kids in our neighborhood. Katie homeschools her children. You know,
You have to, I'm sorry, you have to direct
I
the,
apologize. I didn't
it's
know.
okay,
I
you're supposed to
another
direct
process.
me to.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I was answering his
That's fine.
question. But, so that's our concern as residents. We don't want to stop improvements within our community in any way, shape, or form. We're happy that he's done the good things that he's done. But what we've asked is please take care of the noise. Get an audio engineer in there and figure out what you have to do to take care of that. And we're happy.
Sure.
And then with the lighting, and of course now the leaves are going to start dropping pretty soon, you know, that noise level's going to go up. The light pollution's going to go up for us. And we count. We
Yep.
count too. So, on behalf of my neighbors back there, we hope you do that and take care of that. And we don't think that it would be right to go forward adding more until that's addressed. So, thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
If I could just ask a follow-on
please.
question, just to understand this. I know when we did the original approval, we approved it for the indoor use as well as outdoor uses. So is there an issue with indoor noise that's getting through the building and going out to the neighborhood, or is it just outdoor activities?
It's not outdoor activities. There are no outdoor activities on that side of the building. It's just the railroad tracks.
Well, I know we had,
We don't do anything on that side of the building.
yeah, no, but we allowed it to the right of the
And there haven't been
buildings.
any outdoor activities on the front that anybody would even notice. And
So
the
it-
sound can't get from the front of the building all the way across and beyond the tracks. I don't think that's it.
If we have a problem with the noise
That's-
and they haven't even used that portion.
I'm just trying to understand, is this an issue with, I know people in sports things, they get excited, yell, yay!
We hear
Is
that. We hear sneakers squeaking on basketball courts. We also
You need
hear
to come up
that-
to, I'm sorry.
Need to say who you are.
Sorry.
So it sounds
It's
as,
pretty extensive.
so,
Just,
We can
hold
hear-
on, just name and address
Kate
again.
Gerstenlauer,
For the
12
record, thank you
Pershing
very
Street. Yep. I should have clarified, but yeah, it's very extensive. You can hear music from the fitness classes in the mornings from some of our neighbors here. We can hear the squeaking of the shoes on the basketball courts. We can hear the announcers using their microphones during tournaments. We hear all of the music they'll play all day long for tournaments. You'd be surprised, but it's a steel corrugated little building. Like, there's no insulation here. Everything that happens in there, we hear.
thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Brett Sylvia, 12 Pershing Street. Just a comment on the noise to also give kind of 2 cents worth of it all. You know, as we hear the noise coming from the building, you know, we have made notes where we have called, I've called and we've talked through email and things. And anytime that we have had an issue and we've called over, you know, the response is, well, we gotta, you know, call the police too so that we can do that. So we have to call, you know, how do we take care of that? I've taken myself to kind of talk to the millworks and say, you know, can you help us out with that? Mr. Nicholas has been the most receptive of it, but more times than not, the common perception is, well, it's the middle of the day. And there's a big difference between a train going by for 90 seconds, maybe 3 times a day, versus an underlying bass, where you just hear thumping, and you just hear that bump, bump, and it changes up. You don't know when it's coming. And so that is our issue with it, and I just find it concerning that there's not going to be any accommodations made to the interior of the building to prevent that noise from getting out, because with more people coming in, more of the building being used, that begs the question, well, how loud can it get? And we are right behind where building 16 would be. So if we can hear it now, I can only imagine what that thumping will be like if it is still like that.
Yes, Jeff?
Just a question that I don't know if some folks in the audience might be able to answer. Relative to the noise and the bass, is it different now than it was, say, 2 or 3 years ago? I'm trying to find out if some of the recent partial improvements to these 2 units.
I didn't live here then.
Hi there. I'm Liz Greenslade. We own 1820 Pershing Street, my husband and I. When this first went in, we got the letter that it was going in, and we were like, oh, that's great, that's awesome. We immediately had issues with the sound. At the time, I dealt with Sandy. She was the one working. And that got us nowhere, so we had called the police a couple times. And the first time they came out, they stood on the front of my house, which does not back up to Millworks, and they heard nothing. And they were kind of like, what are you talking about? And then they walked to my backyard, and they were like, oh, it sounds like a dance club out here. And it was like 8 o'clock at night. And back then I had younger kids going to bed, and I'd be putting them in bed, and they'd be dancing to the music and stuff. And so it was just something that, like, we couldn't get used to. I put a fan on at night to block out the train, but I didn't want to put a fan on all day and all night for the music. It didn't really get solved then. When she left and it was going through, is it Joe? Sorry, your name? Ilya, sorry. It was going to him. I think it improved just a little bit, but we still hear the music. The music is the thing. And for us, when we found out where it was coming from, it was a gym. There was one person in there, and the music was being blasted so loud for one person. So we didn't really understand, like, why we needed this loud, super loud music for just one person in there. We do hear the cheering, I hear the sneakers, we hear all that. For me, it's the music mostly, but yes, it has improved a little bit since opening. COVID had a lot to do with that because it was closed down for so long. We've been hearing it again recently, but not as bad as it was, but still not great. We still hear it for sure.
Yep.
And the lighting issue, it's multiple lights on the back of the building, very, very bright. I don't know if they're for the safety, the fire emergency lights, but they shine bright in our rooms at nighttime. So those were our issues, I think, if you guys have more to say about that.
Could be as easily as pointing
Quick
those down.
comment. We've done no changes to any lighting on the exterior of the building on the back, so I'm not sure what's happening there. We'll have to do a little checking, but they don't use the back of the building. They're there so that if there's a fire and people egress out the back, they'll have lighting to make sure they can get out, but that's it.
Is there a way to maybe face those down so they don't shine?
Don't know. They've been there 50 years, and now all of a sudden it's an issue. I just have to try to understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to address the noise, because I know pretty much what they're talking about. So we had, starting in last March and April, we ran basketball events during the weekend. And one of our coordinators, there was in-house events, had decided to go with the DJ to get a different vibe in the building, and that was on a Saturday and Sunday for 4 or 5 hours off of that. And I was unaware at any time or point that was affecting in the back. The first time I heard of anything, I believe, was May 6th. I got a certified letter, as well as Chris. and I was made aware of it at that point that we tabled it down. We did have, I think, 2 or 3 other times, I believe, for a camp or a clinic, and then I was made aware, I think, I'm forgetting his last name, for 12 Pershing Street, Brett, that I dealt with. As soon as I was made aware of it from his aspect, I responded immediately back, emails back and forth. I offered to go back and listen to it. All I dealt with was from the police. I'm more than happy. The other part I think they might be concerned with, which I didn't realize is as big an issue, is we have a fitness class with our members that in the morning they do play music, and that's probably right on the border of the property in our gym off of that.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to eliminate all DJs going forward. I'm more than happy to table the music in the morning off of that, if that's such an issue off of that. Like I said, I'm very aware and cognizant and empathetic and sympathetic, and we just want to be good neighbors. That's the most important thing. I don't want to have any issues. I want them to enjoy the building. So if that's the issue, like I said, on those isolated, I'm more than happy to eliminate it completely from my end. We don't need to have a DJ turn the 7 or 8 times, and in the morning I can table the music.
Yeah.
People could have headphones on.
Right.
You know, that's fine.
Okay.
If that makes sense, and for my end.
Thanks.
I think that sounds reasonable. Did the board have anything else?
I guess I'd be kind of curious to see somehow if we could just get an understanding of how the sound is coming from the court and getting outside. You know, are there vents? But to identify first off the means by which it's happening, and then maybe we could start investigating solutions. You know, I understand the music, but I also heard them saying they hear the squeaking of the sneakers on the floor. So it sounds to me like there's something that's pretty wide open to let that get outside to the back of the property. But, and then maybe we could identify something to address that fix, so that if we could push the noise out towards an end that was away from the public, or put dampening systems in.
It's exactly the right question. I
That
think.
would be the way I'd like to approach this
I
as
know.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
So, I think that's what I'd like to understand, is the first thing is to understand the means by which it's being
Right.
transmitted outside.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Pia Ansel, and I live at 7 Shenandoah Road in Groton. And I'm a member at Millworks. I've been there for over 3 years, and former general manager of a 60,000 square foot recreational facility, and I love it there. It's amazing. I think they do a tremendous job operating it, and I've seen it grow over the number of years, and I think they're good listeners. So I just wanted to say something positive on their behalf.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
And they've built an amazing community, so I'd
Thank
like
you.
to see them continue.
Great,
Great. Thank you very much. Hello.
Hello. Hello, how are you? I'm Tara Bogdan from 14 Pershing. I want to first off thank you guys on a positive note for what you're doing, and the value that you have added back into Forge and supporting the community. Just like that, I am the one in the backyard in anguish on Saturdays. It's brutal. I was raised in the house that I live in now, and I'm going to be 35 in a couple of days, so I've been around a long time to see these changes go through. I'm really glad that the space is being used that way. I feel with the permits, there should have been business operation, noise level, consideration, something in the lines of, is this building adequate to have soccer and basketball and all this stuff? With like the disruption that it's caused me, it's awful. And that back light, I saw 2 men on the roof, and then that night that light came on. It shines right right into my room, and like, so it's just been an abrupt kind of thing to have to deal with. Like, the tournaments really feel like they're in my backyard or in my kitchen, and it's all day, guys. Like the gym early in the morning, the fitness people, and then the racquetball grunts. Like, it's all good, positive stuff, and I thank you guys for doing this, but I think with every problem or issue, there's a solution. So I think that we could work together to make the buildings adequate, so that the neighbors who have been there for generation over generation, don't feel this anguish and distress because of this, you know? As much concern on the parking, it should also be community, and that's actually how it impacts the residents too. So I just feel like the volume was in no consideration, and, you know, the impact towards us in our backyards, in our, you know, sanctuaries being taken away by tournaments, and constant noise level, without any consideration for us, any protection, any acoustics, walls, something. And then, I don't know if I'm picky, but like the buildings could be updated on the outside too, you know, then, like we walk there and have been walking those trails for all my life. And so with that improved business and I think improving the exterior would help too, and possibly fixing the parking, because that should be marked and direction one way. But thank you. It's gonna look great. And then I got another thing with the restaurant. I'm really worried about this because it's so loud and it's just not fair. But I want to know, are you going to have alcohol at this restaurant? Are you having live music outside? How many people? And we have to address our first problems first. So I'd really like on behalf of our Pershing, you know, to address this in a very positive manner, because what's going on inside is great, but what's going on the outside, not so great. So asking for your partnership to
So I think
simply make that, sorry guys,
Yep.
asking for that partnership
Yep.
to hopefully, you know, regain our peace of mind. And the same thing as Brett saying, never knowing when it's going to happen. It's just like, oh my gosh, really?
I think to answer one question, I believe you, Mr. Yule, you do have a liquor permit, yes? Or a
It's
beer and
pending,
wine?
we have not been issued the permit.
Oh, okay. Got it.
There's
But I-
one, but there's one available, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the intention is to have it be some, you know, sort of a restaurant that would at least have beer and wine, is my understanding, right,
So
Mr.
a
Yule?
bar.
Yes.
there.
Believe that is the intention.
And to be fair, who would have known when you put everything in that the noise would go through the building? So like Bob said, it's the main understanding how it's getting out and what you can do to mitigate the noise
That's
that
all.
you weren't expecting to be there.
Yeah.
So,
There's audio engineers who can go in and just
Sure.
do their magic and
Yep.
say, this is what you need to do, and then it's solved. It's simple,
Yep.
really, costs a little bit of money.
and and walking behind the building and, oh, I didn't know that light was there and it never used to go on and now it does.
Right.
So, things like
Maybe I
that.
should make a small comment. I've been hearing about this for months. The obvious first thing to do is to go hear it yourself. We've been making a lot of effort to go there when this is actually happening and hear it so that we can understand it. And we've been unsuccessful in being able to get access anywhere to do that. So if this is such an important thing, I've not received any phone calls about this. I have not received any emails about it. Ilya has reached out and not been able to get access at any point when there's an actual complaint. So we are kind of starved for information on this as to know what to do. You can't fix this in a vacuum. You have to go over there and stand there and say, oh, now I understand it.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a fishing expedition. So that's been a little bit of a source of frustration for me. It's not for lack of interest. We obviously don't want to be causing trouble. You know me better than that. So that's just some information I wanted you to have.
Yep, appreciate that.
Dylan, let me
Yep.
just make one statement.
Go ahead.
I'm going to suggest, Jeff, if we could, when we do a site walk,
Yep.
I'd like the residents that are here today who want to participate and are willing to let us come and stand in their backyards to let us know who they are. So you give us permission.
I think anyone here
I
would.
understand, no, but I just, it would help us if you would give us a list of who's here tonight.
Okay.
Because I don't feel comfortable coming out to a backyard if there's a person that's not here that we know of.
Absolutely.
I've heard a lot of addresses.
Yep, okay.
We will do this.
Provide that.
Did you have a comment?
Yes, I wanted to just say to Mr. Yule, I don't ever.
No, you have to
He
talk to
said
me.
he tried to set up appointments. I want to know who he tried to contact.
Well, we can figure this out
Because-
going forward.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're just trying to be truthful here,
Yep,
and we expect the same,
we understand.
okay?
Yep.
So that's.
We understand.
We hear you.
Okay.
If anyone's willing to allow, staff and board to go to their property,
We'll get a
if you
list.
could email us.
That would be perfect if you could put together a list, get that to Jeff, and then that way we'll know when we do the site walk that we can stop by and we're not intruding on your
And
backyard.
we'll let you know when the time frame when we would be
Yeah,
there.
you'll know the day that we'll be coming out. Okay?
Maybe. As long as they don't.
Well, of course they're gonna know when we're coming.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody with new information from the audience? Okay, seeing none. Anything else from the board?
Nope.
No. Okay, Jeff, I think it sounds like we'd like to do another site walk. At some time, what would be ideal is if that could happen at some time when you have a tournament happening.
Yeah, at your convenience. I mean, we can.
Or nighttime,
Like to do it in the next 2
busy
weeks.
times,
Well, I
yeah.
almost,
You're not here?
no, I'm here. I mean, there is a week, I'm not here the first week in October because I'm in California, but other than that, I'm around. But no, what I think would be helpful actually would be, I mean, I hate to say this, but I almost feel like we need to go 2 different times. I think there's a question of traffic in the evenings where there may or may not be this sound situation. It sounds like the sound situation happens when they have a large tournament and you've got hundreds of people in there actually using the facility. So we
need both.
We almost need to do, well, maybe we don't. Maybe we learn enough on a weekend if we see the tournament in action and we can actually gauge traffic and gauge noise.
Yeah.
I'm also gonna ask Ilya to put the sound up and let me see what it's like outside and walk around the perimeter of
And
the
no
building.
offense, but a lot of the noise is going beyond scope for us.
The thing, Bob, though, is, I mean, yeah, there's the sound system, but I mean, the fact that they're hearing sneakers and stuff like that. I mean,
I'm gonna expect if I go in the gym, I'm gonna hear sneakers. If I go out back and I hear what the neighbor said, I'm gonna hear sneakers.
Right.
That's gonna be the concern.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jeff, I think that's the next step, is we should arrange a time with the applicant when, they know that the tournament is going to be happening that day, and we can get a good majority of the board, at least 3 of us, are available that same day to go out and do a site walk. If everybody
Or
agrees.
if there's no tournament in the next few weeks
Yep.
or couple of weeks, then the plan B would be a busy time
Right.
at night.
Yeah.
In the evening or something.
Yeah, yep, agreed.
Understood. We can set that up offline. I can
Yeah.
reach out to the applicant.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I do a lot of tours. What Ilya can do is give you a sense of the schedule coming up.
Yep.
Pick the kind of event you would like to see.
Yep.
And then you can come. You don't have to all come at once. You can come to 3 events or 4 events or 1 event, whatever you're comfortable with. You can see more than one.
Yep.
The response on these is quite predictable and it's never failed. So we're happy to have you come. This is another one of those things I can't keep a straight face about. So we would love to have you come during an event because it's a really special thing.
Yep.
And for me, it restores my faith in the whole purpose of what I do and why I did it. And it wipes away all the pains and bruises of other things, just to say this is fabulous.
Yep.
So I would love to have you come and see it, and I will welcome your comments and criticisms. We love creative discussions. We're always about coming up with new and unusual ways to do things. So we listen to anything, anytime, any place.
Yeah, great, okay. Okay. At this point, is there a motion, are we ready to continue this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I didn't think that you were available for the October 4th meeting.
I'm not here on the October 4th meeting.
Is there anyone else not here October 4th?
I should be here.
What about the 18th?
I will be here the
Yeah.
18th.
Be here the 18th.
I probably will not. I'm gonna do remote.
Are you thinking we should continue to the 18th?
I'm not suggesting that. I just want to make sure that we have at least 4 members present.
Yep.
That's all.
We can call in, correct? Or
The
not?
18th is special town meeting.
Well, actually.
Oh, no, it got moved.
It got moved to the 16th, I believe.
16th, yeah.
I cannot call in on the 4th, unfortunately.
No, I can call in
On the 18th.
18th.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if we're gonna need a little more time to, line up. I don't know what the event schedule looks like, so I'm not sure when this.
So maybe the applicant can email us sort of tentative events coming up in the next several weeks.
They'll have it tomorrow.
Okay.
Great.
So continue, and then if they're going to move it, they move it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can always continue past the 4th if
Sure.
it doesn't
We can
work.
get you plenty of events between now and the 4th. We're concerned about being able to use 13 and 16
I
for some of
understand.
these events.
If you have events coming up in the next couple of weeks, we'll get out there as quickly as possible. I just want to
It's
make sure.
okay
that
for
we're-
us to use 13 and 16 in the interim until things have,
Not our
that's
call.
important to us.
I don't.
Not our
I
call.
mean, if you want to come and see the place in operations, that's the
Kind of
whole
a
point.
call for the building inspector, I would think.
Yeah.
Right.
Henry has said privately that he considers the initial approvals to be an indicator because the activities continued all during all the review periods in the past. And that went on for 6 months, and the facility was allowed to continue operation all during that time. So we're just asking for the same consideration this time, because it's going to be quite a hardship for us to have to keep it offline continuously, and it also won't give you as good a sense of how the place is when it's running.
So I was not privy to that conversation, but what the commissioner did indicate is that he needs site plan review for a change of use. So I'm not sure what direction the board would like to give. He is working through that process with you folks, so we're just looking for your direction then at this point.
I mean,
It's a change of use, but you're going to have to be doing construction and such.
It's already done.
No, it's
it's already done.
There isn't any, we just put down the floor. It took 24 hours, it's just
Okay.
sheet vinyl and some turf. With the turf, you can
I mean,
roll it,
The
none of
only-
it's,
The only reason to hold off is if noise is an issue and we feel that something needs to be done to buildings 13 and 16 to mitigate noise from the new use. That would be the only.
well, and the question I think that Mike raised, which is have all of the conditions
Right.
of the initial approval actually been
Right.
satisfied?
So we're not at a point right now. to-
signage is what's not complete.
Right.
Yeah.
I really think at this point you're in the, I mean, my personal feeling, I don't know if the board agrees, you're in the same state that you were in when you came in here until we actually take action, which, may happen on the 4th. We're gonna come out, we're gonna visit at least once, maybe a couple times, and we should be able to reconvene on the 4th and render a decision here.
I don't think we have the authority to give the approval.
Right.
I think you should let him use that. I think,
Right.
no.
All right. With that, is there a motion to continue PB 2136 for 22 Town Farm Road to the October 4th Planning Board meeting at 7:30 in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall?
So moved. Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Great.
Could I ask one thing? Chris, if you could come back, I'd like to know at the next meeting, your best estimate when we can get the signage fixed, if you could find out what can be done, even if it's an interim fix, but I think we need to pick off some of the items here. That's an easy one, I think.
What I can do, that wasn't discussed before, is I can do temporary signs that will mimic the permanent sign in like a foam core that will last for long enough for them to be built. Is that the kind of thing you're thinking about?
Something, yeah, anything, exactly.
Well, I think more,
For the directional signs, at least.
yeah, directional and, drop off, the safety signs, I think are the most important.
Right.
Those are the ones that are most concerned.
All right.
Okay. So we'll see you on the 4th. We'll probably see you before that when we arrive at a site walk. I'm
Yeah,
sure
we
we'll see
need
you
to
then.
do that before the 4th. yeah.
Exactly. So we'll see you over the next week and a half, 2 weeks, I would say.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Apologize for taking so long.
It's all right. It's all right. It's time well invested. All
I'd
right.
like to take a quick break.
21 years.
Yeah. Okay, so, 3 minutes?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to take a 3-minute recess.
Happy to do the rest of the meeting.
What's the change from here? So, what you guys are addressing to me, I'll be happy to do whomever, I just.
I think that the best thing to do is probably copy all of us. We all kind of work together in different ways. So I would say the best thing is probably to copy all of us. Do you have Joe's email?
I don't, not yet.
Okay.
You wanna shoot that over to me?
Yes.
Go ahead, all right, then.
Yep, I
I'll
can-
put it
I
in
can-
the machine. Do you wanna be on this chain, or?
Absolutely.
Yep,
All right.
get all the planning.
Be careful what you wish for. It started out with Aaron, and then it switched to you, and that confused me a
Yeah,
little bit.
we were, the office was missing an assistant planner and town planner for some months, so I
Right.
think that,
We lost that in the woods again?
yeah, the assistant planner got promoted, and so so I didn't take that position. And so, I think Erin was probably taking over a lot of stuff, but she also does do a lot of applications, we do a lot of speaking.
No, I'm
With
not
applicants and
criticizing, I
things
just
too,
wanna
so
make sure I
sometimes it's
understood the
both of
flow,
us.
sometimes
Yeah.
I'm used to having a little better feel for how things work here, so I can
It's
put
not
in my
very
stuff
rigid.
appropriately.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
appreciate you asking that. So I'll make sure you have Joe's email and then just copy.
Great.
Yeah, just want to copy everything. That's
Great.
So
I'll
I'll
bump
see it.
into you at some time, we can chat, just catch up.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, have a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. I remember that winter day, we did a walk through the empty stone wall.
It was a long time ago, wasn't
It was 2000, 2001, because I was on the mill reuse bylaw.
It's gonna make it harder to
Ted
come up
Carmen
with
was in
a
Ted
note
was it?
for the,
I started in 2002. My first
So it must have been
filing-
2002, but you were there with the tour. Because we went out with you and Ted, and we walked all the buildings. We saw the sluiceway under the lobby. We went down and saw the generators.
Were you at the grand opening?
No, not for that one.
That was the big difference, right?
Yeah.
So have you been through since? The
In
finish-
parts.
finish?
Yeah, in parts, but not. I've been over
Come,
to
we
the
should do
both
that, we
sides.
should do the.
Mr. Schaffer.
Going down memory lane.
Okay. All right, we have everybody back. We're back from our short recess. All right, we are done with our public hearing items for the evening, and we are on to general business. The first item under general business is PB 2135, a stormwater management permit at 124 Main Street, lots number 5 and number 6. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Matt Waterman with Land Tech Consultants. Also with me is Joe Cataldo from 124 MSW LLC. We're here tonight for the stormwater management permit. It's a discussion. We were in front of the board at the last meeting on August 16th. Since then, we've received the engineering review. They also had comments with conditions of approval recommended. Most of the comments were housekeeping comments, simply documenting compliance with the new regulations, documenting that we meet the standards, quantify, provide a narrative on the drainage we provide and how that meets the performance standards of the new regulations. There's really minimal changes to the plan. We've spoke with Jeff on a couple occasions. I think we can meet we've obviously gone through the engineering comments, we can meet all the conditions and make the necessary changes. We didn't have the time to do it for the meeting tonight. We got the comment letter on Thursday, I believe. So we didn't have time to get it back to engineering and get comments back in time for tonight's meeting, but we would request respectfully that the board approve, subject to addressing the conditions outlined in the engineering department letter. There was no substantive changes recommended with engineering that required either new drainage or different types of drainage.
Yep. Great. Jeff?
Yeah, I did reach out directly with the engineering department and asked them if they would have any objection whatsoever if this board were to approve this project. They had no reservations whatsoever. They just respectfully request that if the board approve it, just make reference to their memorandum and agree to address the things outlined to the satisfaction of their department. Again, they have no issues with this.
Great. All right. thank you.
And there was one
Yep.
comment that you had to correct the typo on the O&M that we need to do as well.
Oh, yes.
We referenced 3 dwellings. There's only 2 dwellings, 1 on each lot.
Right, right.
So that would also need to be addressed.
Right. Great, thank you for remembering that. Good, so then let's go to the board. Darren?
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, as long as engineering is comfortable and we can take into account the comments Matt made tonight, I think we're fine.
Great.
Agreed.
Kate?
So engineering, like, had little things like moving a driveway a certain way and moving something else, shifting it around and stuff. So is that the stuff that you were willing to do and you just haven't incorporated it into
Yep, correct. Yeah, we didn't have the time to do it. I think we could have made the changes and got them to the staff on possibly Friday, but I don't think it would have made it to your packets or to, engineering wouldn't have been able to respond.
So you're okay with making all the changes that they are recommending? And so if we decide to approve tonight, it would be the conditions as well as making all of the changes required by engineering?
Yep, correct.
Okay. And conservation had something about, is it part of the natural heritage, endangered species, and
I haven't followed up on that one. I don't recall off the top of my head if this area is in a natural heritage priority habitat area or not. I don't think it is generally.
just because it's on the plans, and they said, and the conservation planner coordinator, whatever his title is, like you, thinks it's no, and so it needs to be removed from the
Yeah,
plans.
we can make that address. Like I said, I think Natural Heritage has done a good job with existing properties and mapping around properties such as the Hicks Farm. It's been there a long time, and they've gotten really good with the aerial imagery of going around these. So I would think it's not in Natural Heritage. It's probably a typo. And we
Okay.
can certainly address that.
Okay, and they also requested that you add a comment to the plan sheet that you have gone to conservation for, help me here, and did the
ANRAD?
the RO, I don't,
Request for determination?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can add a note that has the specifics. We can reference the file number.
Yeah.
And the date it was issued, which we typically do. And I think if it's not on the plan, it should be on the plan for sure.
Yeah, so they just noticed it was missing, so they thought it should be on there. And that's all I had. I'm okay as long as the approval includes the engineering comments.
Great. Bob?
I had one question, because I was reading through the prevention plan. I think it was the prevention plan where I saw the quote, asked about the amount of disturbance, and I think the total area was stated to be upwards of 2 acres, with no more than 1 acre at a time. And I just wanted to understand how that would occur. My concern is that these might be very popular lots, and you're going to have all the construction taking place simultaneous. So that's why I wanted to understand what the approach was to
No, and I think a lot
control
with this
that
lot, I think
disturbance.
that might have been an oversight for sure, because I think the goal of minimizing the earthwork and the disturbance, these 2 lots kind of go together in a sense that you're taking some of the dirt and the existing material and you're utilizing it on 6 and you're taking it from lot 5. So the goal is to kind of have these 2 lots together and develop together. So we would be
It seemed to me that you could have 2
acres.
acres disturbed at
Correct.
one time. So I think
Correct,
that
and
needs to be
I can,
fixed.
Make sure that that's corrected in the O&M manual.
Okay, all right, that's it.
Okay.
That was my,
Yeah, and as long as we satisfy engineering's comments in their memorandum, then I'm fine as well. So, given that, is there a motion to approve PB 2135, the stormwater management permit for 124 Main Street, lots 5 and 6, contingent upon satisfying all of the conditions as outlined in the engineering department's memorandum?
Plus their
made the previous evening.
No, within the, not just the conditions, but also the action, issues, whatever they're called.
To the satisfaction of the engineering department?
Yeah.
Correct.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
That's great. Motion in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next general business item is PB 2138, Stormwater Management Permit for 124 Main Street, lots 1, 2, and 3.
Good evening. Again, for the record, Matt Waterman with Land Tech Consultants, here on behalf of Deca Corp. They're the owners of the 3 lots that are on the westerly side of the Hicks property. I'm sure as most of you remember, the property was developed into 6 A&R lots. They're all about 1.5 acre lots or larger. They vary a little bit up to like 1.8 acres. These 3 lots sit closer to the Westford center side of the property. It's mostly horse pasture. There's an outdoor riding ring. And then on lot 3 on the far right of our plan, there's a large warehouse barn. It was utilized for lumber storage, and I think there was some garage bays out in the back that were utilized for storage, cars and things like that. We're here tonight for a stormwater management permit, similar to the one we were just talking about, and consistent with that, in that we attacked the drainage design in a very similar fashion. The soils are very similar throughout the site, not only on the individual lots 5 and 6, but similar to 1, 2, and 3. It's very sandy soil, well drained, deep depth to the groundwater. This project does not include the lot 4 is where the Hicks property, the original residence is. The office for Habitat Humanity was on lot 4. So this is all to the left of that. Each lot is a kind of a conventional single-family A&R dwelling. There's a driveway, septic system, town water, electric service, and natural gas. The stormwater systems are specific to each lot. There's no crossover or easements that are required. They have a roof drain for the house and for the building, and then for the driveway impervious surface, it's a small rain garden with a grass swale and a vegetated buffer, which gets us all of our credits from TSS removal and phosphorus removal and all the new items in the stormwater management bylaw. We provided an O&M with a long-term pollution prevention plan. This one's a little unique, and I think that in order to do lots 5 and 6, there will be some work to be done in the conservation buffer to remove the pavement and buildings. Right now, we're not planning on proceeding with that. We understand that we have to file if we do any work within the 100-foot buffer or any of the resource areas. And different than lots 5 and 6, where we're not proposing any work within the resource buffers. Similar to the previous project, engineering has issued a comment letter. It's consistent, almost the comments are almost the exact same, and the recommended conditions of approval are the same. We have no issues. We've gone through them. We've talked to staff, and we recommend that the board approve, subject to addressing all of the engineering comments.
You specifically confirmed with the engineering department about this application. They feel the same. They have no issues. Everything is minor in nature, and they'd appreciate it if you did approve it to reference their memorandum and their suggestions and suggested conditions.
All right, we'll go to the board. Darren?
Same as the last one, as long as engineering is happy, as long as those conditions are met, I'm happy with it.
Okay. Agreed. Yep. Kate?
Same thing, as long as they address the comments and the conditions, that those both go into our decision.
Yep.
And the same comments from conservation regarding natural heritage, and adding the fact that you had got the determination from them.
Great. Tom?
I guess my one question has to really do with the rain garden and what's going to be done for presenting that information to the new buyer. One, making sure that, that's an area that's specially engineered, and there needs to be a no disturb zone for the most part around it, I would think. Because if a homeowner comes in there and decides to re-garden and put in their own soils and remove stuff, they will destroy the value that is providing. So I think it's really important somehow we get some conditions in here so that we have some control that the homeowner is not going to disturb the engineering aspects. And secondly, I'd like to have some knowledge that the homeowner has been instructed in what to do with this specially engineered feature on their property. Obviously, they're probably going to have to maintain plants in the future. I know you've got a nice list in here of what potential plants could be, but I'd just like to see what it is we're going to give to the homeowner so that is smartly maintained and we don't lose its value after 5 years.
Yeah, no, and it's twofold. One of the comments from engineering, I think, is very consistent with your comments in that we set it up and we do everything with the developer. We do the operation and maintenance manual. They get copies of it, and I think their comment was similar in that they want to make sure that that's handed down to the future homeowners, not only the initial ones, but future ones. And there's two kind of ways that's addressed. The O&M, the maintenance agreement gets recorded, and is required to be recorded with the stormwater management bylaw. Typically, that's either done by recording the whole O&M, and the maintenance agreement is kind of attached to that. One is kind of consistent. You need one to have the other because they cross-reference each other, and just signing the maintenance agreement, it includes all the conditions in the O&M manual, and so that gets recorded. The second thing is, and I didn't have a chance to go through it, and I apologize, but I know with typically with conservation, Jeff, there's kind of a signature, there's an acknowledgement form that's done, or there's a condition, kind of a standard boilerplate condition in a lot of the order conditions that says that the homeowner is responsible for all future maintenance. And I was just assuming that there was in the stormwater bylaw. I just didn't get a chance to dig through it. Not that I just want to make sure that we kind of connect those two dots. And I'm not saying that we can't do something on our end, we certainly will, but I was just thinking that we could either, at the time of the closing, that they sign something. I know Conservation Commission does that, that makes them aware of it. I was just trying to think with what we do with a lot of the other departments.
Is there anything that can be put in deeds or anything to reference the O&M
The deed will
plan?
reference the O&M.
Yeah.
Right here. It's as a loose reference, right? It'll just say subject to conditions. And that's in the engineering letter, so we are responsible to make sure that we satisfy, because engineering had kind of did ask the same question. And I'm comfortable because I know the O&M manual gets recorded and it gets signed. The question is that it's signed by the developer, and how do you connect the future homeowner and making sure that they're aware of it. And then obviously comes with that all the maintenance of the rain garden, that they don't fill it in and put a swing set there or whatever, worst case scenario.
Maybe we could ask for a little leeway from the board. I think we understand your concern. We've heard, if something's in the deed and it's referenced, it's out there for any future buyer. So maybe there's a way we can work with the applicant and engineering department to have those documents in place.
And we'll
potentially even
include it in our
recorded.
response to the engineering department, how we're going to address it, so.
But then any deeds can refer to those, and so it's in the chain of title. So I think that's one way. And if we don't reach satisfaction, we don't think they met your intent, then as with any, potential conflict, they can just come back to the board at a future meeting.
Does that need to be added as a condition that,
Well, that's what I,
to
when I was mentioning about leeway. We hear your concerns. We want it as simple as possible. And to me, the simplest way is deed.
Yep.
If the documents are in place to be referenced to in the deed, it's there in perpetuity. So I think we can try to satisfy your goal without being onerous to the applicant, and that way it's there in the chain of title effectively.
No,
And if-
I think it's a good idea. I'm asking, does that need to be added as a condition that
I don't think it needs to be a condition, because my intent is that we would write the decision to match the
Okay.
solution, you know what I mean?
Got it.
And it says it right in the stormwater management, O&M, it says, the stormwater management system is to be owned and maintained by the owner, property owner.
Yeah,
And
but-
the rain garden's part of that.
Yeah, but if you don't know to look for an O and M, then you don't know that you're responsible.
Right. So it'd be consistent, but with referencing it in the deed.
I didn't even think about this until just now when we talked about this. I'm looking also at the infiltration system placement on these lots. Especially, I guess all the lots. Is there any possibility those could be placed closer to the rain garden, or do they have to be separated at the distance you have here?
Two things, we're trying to keep them in an area that's off to the side, so in case there's future pool plans or future development in the backyard, so we try to kind of put them off to the side. There is a setback for the septic system. I don't remember if there's a specific offset to the rain garden, but I know there is the septic system, so we try to keep them out back and as far away from the septic as possible.
I guess that, you mentioned the one thing I was thinking about is future pool plans and looking at these lots. Especially like Lot 1, it just seems that the roof infiltration system is placed pretty much dead center in that backyard. And that is going to interfere if somebody does try to put a pool back there, I would think.
A lot of times and I know the condition of approval is that the new standard condition from engineering is the site plan that we present, that kind of takes this plan, takes the approved septic plan, any conservation plans, and kind of the building permit plans, and puts them into one plan to try and capture all of that. So if there is any final changes, like they have a buyer that, is interested in a pool, we'll get some advice from the developer to move that, and we typically will pick that up in that sense. At this point, we don't know, so it's
right.
No matter where we put it, it's in the way.
Understood. Understood. Okay.
Good. So, and I'm good as well. So is there a motion to approve PB 2138 Stormwater Management Permit for 124 Main Street, lots 1, 2, and 3, contingent upon the applicant executing on all of the comments and conditions in the memorandum by town engineering, as well as comments made here this evening?
I think it's dated 8, what's the date on
I don't know.
The engineering letter is
Engineering letter is
September
3rd.
3rd.
September 3rd.
I know it was the 3rd
So
or
moved.
something.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and the last general business item this evening is consider establishing a working group for EV charging stations. This board has heard, obviously, some fairly vigorous feedback from residents that it would be great to consider amending the town's bylaws to include EV charging stations in some form or function into future projects. And I think the scope tonight, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, is all we need to really do is consider whether or not we have a number of interested residents, is my understanding.
Sir, not fewer than 3?
Not fewer than 3, that's great. So I think, maybe the two things we need to do tonight is simply decide, do we agree that establishing a working group for EV charging stations makes sense? And then potentially, if someone's interested, maybe nominate a member of the board to participate in that group, right?
Yep, and I'm going to turn this one over to Sierra, who's spearheading this effort.
Great.
And we do have one of our volunteers here with us tonight as well.
Excellent. Right. Hi, Sierra.
Hi. Okay, so actually, Joe took the liberty of creating a bit of a charge, like a mission statement for what the working group would be doing if you guys do choose to go forward with that. So they'll collectively engage Westford stakeholders to explore the needs and feasibility to provide the necessary network of stations to support the demand for vehicle charging throughout town. Based on the underlying demand for vehicle charging, the group will ultimately be responsible for advising the planning board regarding the development of an action plan with clear, obtainable objectives, including but not limited to any necessary regulatory changes, implementation processes, and funding strategies as necessary. Basically, they would be taking over with, all the research that we started and just looking deeper into it, doing some, public engagement, and feasibility study. So, and we do have Mr. Chu as a volunteer. We also have Jeremy Arnold, who wrote us an email, I believe this morning, stating that he would be interested at the previous meeting, I believe. And then we also have Jerry DeBello, who is a member of the Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. So that actually kind of checks off a few of these boxes for our list of who we would think could be on the working group. One of the members of the board, a representative of the Healthy Westford committee, 2 to 3 members of the general public. We already have 2 volunteering. I would be involved as well, and the assistant town manager has offered to be involved in an advisory capacity and to be sort of a point of contact between the town and the working group.
I had one other question, suggestion, and I was going to ask about maybe considering Economic Development Committee, because I kind of heard about investment in business, and I'm just wondering if that would make sense to get somebody from there.
Sure. It's your working group.
I'm just throwing it out there for discussion.
Yeah, no,
because
that's a really good.
It's gonna be in non-residential areas.
Right.
so.
Sure.
Great.
And again, you can always amend and add others,
Right.
at any meeting.
Understand.
So there's a lot of flexibility there.
The mission statement looks good from my perspective.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
Great job, Joe.
Good job, Joe.
Thank you.
Is that what Lowell has?
No, I just read the materials that Sarah put together and I drafted something.
Great.
Are you the one who
Yep.
provided the materials in the packet?
And actually, for some of the stuff, there was somebody else, it was an outside entity that emailed us.
Oh, yes, we did have an email from someone, I don't recall who, they had provided us a link to some more guidance documents that were included in your packet.
Great.
That was Christina Green,
Yeah, thank you.
Finance Committee.
Mr. Chu, would you like to say something?
Yes, good evening. I'm Chauncey Chu of Green Needles Road. Hey, I appreciate the formation of this working group, really do. I just have a suggestion or a request that maybe on the objectives there, we put a definite date, due date for this.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah,
Gee,
I'd like
it's
to.
great, it's not.
I've been after the committee here, the board here, if we could get something, if there are any amendments, to get those ready for the Springtown meeting next year.
To
I don't know,
be-
we could walk it back and see if it's feasible.
I don't think it would.
That's pretty aggressive, actually.
Because you'd
And
have
the-
to be done by December.
And the,
Okay.
and the other thing here, this could be multi-phased. When you get into this, you could have something that you come up with that's a short-term fix for a town meeting, and that's good. But this could be a committee that might have to go on for another year or two after that, because there might be some much more substantial changes to zoning, or our subdivision, our zoning bylaws to make further encouragements. I could see us going to selectmen with things that they might want to be encouraging through business development, economic development. So, I wouldn't want to actually limit the committee, because then the committee disbands.
To go beyond planning board.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them work this, and this might take a little bit of time to work the whole effort.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to drag out for.
I don't want it to drag out, but I also don't want to say, if you don't have it done by this time, you're done.
Okay.
And that's your first meeting you set up, and you decide what are your short-term and your long.
What's your goals?
What are your goals?
Okay. I'm sorry, we missed on PB 2136, would have been a prime candidate to get some bylaw in effect. With all those people there working out in the gym for half an hour, they can get their car charged up and go home.
Yep.
There you go.
A lot of potential spots down there.
We're not done yet. We're not done yet with them.
No, but you get them on the treadmill, no?
And the other thing is, what's the next step here? The group is being formed here is, how are we going to get together?
I suspect, like with your subdivision working group, you would be deciding if you're going to meet in person or virtually, and we would ask that you comply with open meeting law requirements. You'd be posting agendas, providing minimal minutes, and Sierra can help guide you through that process.
And there's going to be certain things you have to, as a committee member, come down and sign with the town that you acknowledge, like open meeting law, et cetera.
Yep.
And if you decide to do Zoom, then you have to figure out who's gonna,
Work with Mike Wells.
yeah, and
So is Sierra
Be
going
the
to call a
monitor.
meeting together and get all the volunteers that you've got there?
Well, I think, I think the
you'll also
next,
have to advertise.
I think the next
like-
step is to
Oh,
advertise.
they have to advertise, and so Sierra will do that?
Yep.
I just want to make sure nothing gets dropped here and that we move forward.
I think it's a good item for the next town manager's newsletter, because she also has the thing signing the citizen interest form for committees.
Okay.
I think we'd also be good to have that as an announcement at the next selectmen's, the Board of Select Persons,
Yeah, select board.
Select Board.
So this is an advisory group to this board.
Yeah.
So if you want to advertise far and wide, that's totally fine. You know, we can certainly help with that process, but nothing prevents an advisory group from commencing, and if you add to the membership over time, and if
Okay.
you recruit, you know, you can simply adjust the
Yeah.
membership as you see fit.
Well, I just say that because if we have three, well, we have 2 to 3 members of the general public, and if you want to add the third person, they would,
Be nice to give them
Let
a
'em
chance
know.
to join the first meeting, because it's a lot easier to come in as a
Yeah.
group as opposed to adding.
Okay.
It's just,
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
maybe what we could do, Jeff, is put an announcement up on the website, the town website, that get a little bit of airplay.
So, is there a member of this group who'd like to volunteer to be the representative from the planning board?
It's not required, it's just, we thought we'd better ask if you wanted representation on your own working group.
I'm willing to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If we can do it virtually, I'll do it.
Okay.
What happens if they meet in person?
Then I'm gonna have to abdicate to somebody else.
Okay, we'll cross
Why?
that bridge when we get to it.
All right.
Well, since it's a
About to go-
working group, couldn't they
Oh,
meet
right.
sort of, some people be remote? Is there a requirement that everybody would have to be public?
It helps.
Public meeting laws.
I'm not,
But is a working group actually bound by public meeting laws?
so, it's not always cut and dry. The subdivision working group, there's 2 planning board members on it. That one is kind of in a much stronger category for needing to comply with open meeting law.
Yeah.
Check with council, absolutely.
Sure.
It gets a little squishy if there's one member of the planning board, and if there's only one member of the planning board, maybe it's a possibility. Council advises, you know, err on the side of caution. If there's no members of the planning board and you just have an advisory group that really can't take any votes besides manage their own minutes and bring you recommendations.
Right.
That might be, you know, less necessary.
Okay.
But given that there's going to be probably at least one member of the planning board, it still makes sense to post agenda and provide minimal minutes. And at the end of the day, they're still going to just provide recommendations to this board.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Yes?
Yes, regarding that, I was a member of the sign bylaw committee. I don't remember posting any minutes or meeting notices or anything like that.
Life has changed.
Well, we've benefited from hundreds of open meeting law violations, and we have great town councils, so we like to heed their advice.
All right. So we have a volunteer representative. So is there a motion to approve establishing a working group for EV charging stations?
So moved.
And with the mission statement as drafted, with the addition of the economic development member.
Right. Okay. So I heard thank you. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Great.
Okay, now, with respect to, we have at least 3 specific volunteers. Are you willing to appoint them at this time?
I move that we appoint Bob Schaffer as the planning board representative to the EV station working group, and that we initially approve Jerry DeBello and Jeremy Irons?
Jeremy Arnold.
Jeremy Arnold, Irons, whatever.
And
And
And Mr.
Chauncey,
Chu.
how could I forget you, Chauncey? And Chauncey Chu, as members at large of the general public.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great.
I can't add, so we don't need to advertise because we already have our 3 citizens at large.
Well, can I be a stickler? Since one of those gentlemen is also a member of the Clean Energy Committee, would he be a
Oh.
representative for that? And then we have another at-large member?
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's the idea.
That's
And then
the
also to
intent.
try to get somebody from Healthy Westford Committee and from EDC, maybe that'll help. That'll get out to them.
We're off and running anyway.
Woohoo!
Great. Awesome. Thank you
You're
very
in
much.
charge, Chauncey. Work with her to set up your first meeting.
Excellent. All right. Great. The last item on our agenda this evening is correspondence reports and updates, actually review of the draft minutes. So the minutes from August 16th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Second.
All those in favor?
No.
Aye.
Oh, that's fast.
We have,
You're gonna have any discussion?
like,
Oh,
does
sorry.
anybody?
Sorry.
Wow.
Nice try.
Sorry. All right. Is there any discussion before we take the vote?
I talked with Jeff before the meeting, and he is going to verify whether on my vote for the Carlisle Road open space residential development, I thought I had voted for it. So he's going to.
Oh, I don't think you did.
I don't think you did either.
Yeah, I don't think you did.
If I had that, I did. I didn't have time to look, so he was gonna just check, and if I did, he was gonna modify it. He was gonna check the vote.
There was a deviation with your votes, but I don't remember. I have to go back and check.
So you
the
could always
Yeah,
approve as submitted with the caveat that staff would check
Yeah.
and make that one,
yeah,
correction if needed.
So it doesn't affect the overall vote.
No.
right. That's what I wanted to say, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on the minutes?
Did you wanna add anything about, Griffin Road? Or just leave it as is?
I think we're fine for
Okay,
now.
alrighty.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Okay. Then, is there a motion to approve these minutes, what, contingent upon
Checking of the vote.
the verification of Kate's vote on
Carlisle Road.
0 and 37 Carlisle Road, right?
Yep.
Move. Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Great. Well, that brings us to the end.
Why does no one rush for this motion?
We're good.
Is there a motion to?
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Do I want to say anything? No, I'm all set. I was
Kate,
thinking.
I got so excited. What would you have
Well,
there?
I was thinking, did I want to say anything about pedestrian safety? We did have a meeting, we had 2 things. An engineer, a traffic engineer went out with a bunch of us and reviewed the intersection of Groton Road and North Main Street, which that's up by Picking Gould Farm,
Yep.
Gould Street. And interestingly, in the last 5 years, there have been 13 rear enders as people slow down to turn, and then a couple of other accidents, so.
Killed.
Yep.
Really?
So he had a lot of good suggestions on how to improve the intersection, both short-term and possibly long-term, so he's put out a draft report, and then he'll submit that to engineering in the town. And then a week or so ago, Engineering and their traffic consultant presented 75% design review to the Pedestrian Safety Committee for Boston Road. And they are, I think, presenting it to the selectmen next week?
The select board next
Select-
Tuesday, the
Sorry, select board, yeah.
28th.
Yeah. So that generated a lot of comments from the neighbors.
Yes.
Okay.
So it'd be interesting to see how it goes. So that's at least at 75%, but it wouldn't get constructed until at least 2024, 25.
Ways.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just when Oak Hill Road be done.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Any other updates?
No.
No. Great. So, motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Have a good night, everyone.